Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews with connections in mind, and welcome back to my reaction series to each and every episode of Season 1 of Star Trek Picard. Now, if you haven't seen any of my other reaction episodes up until this point, this is just my short form reaction series where I give my brief overview of the episode and some thoughts on it, what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work, as well as certain analysis of plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar and where you may have seen them before. Now, just to get this out of the way, this will be a full spoiler reaction to this episode. So if you've not seen the latest episode of Star Trek Picard yet and want to wait until you have, stop the video at this point and come back later because it's going to be full spoilers from here on out. With that in mind, let's get into Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 7, entitled Nepenthe. The title Nepenthe referring to the planet where after the end of the previous episode, we see Picard and Soji using a Borg spatial trajector, which apparently was a device used by the Borg Queen to escape a doomed vessel. And they travel to the planet Nepenthe, where Will Riker and Deanna Troi settled, and they have a precocious young daughter named Kestra, and a unfortunately deceased old child who was named Thaddeus. And Picard goes there seeking refuge and potential help, as well as some moral support from his old crewmates. Meanwhile, El-nor is trying to help Hugh on the Borg Cube cover Picard's escape, and trouble ensues when they run into the female Romulan intelligence operative who was running the show on this cube, and also the crew of Rios, Rafi, and Agnes are on the ship that is trying to reach Picard on Nepenthe, but they are also trying to shake a Romulan tail, namely Narek, who is tailing them in his own ship, and they're trying to shake him. But as is revealed in this the opening minutes of this episode, Agnes has had a tracking device in her body this whole time somehow. I assume it was some sort of like marker substance that worked way into her blood or something, and that enabled the Romulans to track her position everywhere. So all that's going down, and now the episode concluded with the crew reuniting and under a new purpose to get to Soji's homeworld, or the planet where Maddox created her, before the Romulans do, and to hopefully save whoever is on that planet from potential destruction from the Romulans. And that seems to be the direction we're heading in the episodes to come. Now, I thought this episode worked best when the character moments, I think, were top notch, especially on Nepenthe between Picard and Riker as they working off each other is always great to see, and it was a great reunion to have him work off of Picard and Riker, Picard and Troi. They worked off well. The friendship between Kestra and Soji was, I thought, very heartfelt, and Kestra's a pretty decently written character. I think she did the young actress that they got to play her did a very good job with what she was given. What I thought wasn't necessarily the best was I thought that the storylines of on the ship and the Borg Cube were not necessarily bad, but of course, because the main focus of the episode was focused on Picard and Soji, that those plot lines didn't necessarily get enough time needed to develop properly, such as El-nor's relationship with Hugh. We have 2 scenes together, and then one scene where he finds Hugh mourning over the bodies of the murdered ex-Borg, and then the second scene where they're walking down a hall in which Hugh is then killed, and El-nor sees Hugh give his last words. He's saying that it was a hopeless cause. So obviously, the hopeless cause is the catalyst of the order of Romulan assassins or whatever that he is a part of. So obviously, he's gonna be taking up the hopeless cause of freeing these ex-Borg on this cube in the coming episodes. It would seem to be, but really, it kind of plays up more as they had a much greater bond, I think, than what the episode showed on screen, and I think that was a disservice to what that arc could have been. Similarly, the back and forth between Rios, Agnes, and Rafi on the ship was, there were some plot developments in which Agnes neutralized the tracking device and put herself to a coma, but other than that, there really wasn't much to do. The Rios' suspicion of Rafi kind of came out of nowhere in this episode. He probably would have voiced that suspicion earlier, I think, and none of these things on the ship was bad per se, but again, I feel like more time should have been was needed to properly develop those elements. That could have just been me. Of course, the focus was rightly on Picard working with Soji and reuniting with Will and Deanna, and that was important. But overall, I would say this episode, just based on what I saw as the preview for next week's episode, is going to be a very action-centric episode, and this felt like more like the deep breath before we get into some heavier, more action-centric episodes. So in that sense, I think this episode served its purpose well. I think it was a good episode to have at this point. Of course, I hope that Will and Deanna show back up again in the series at some point, because, like I said in previous reactions, I think it's somewhat disappointing that, yes, while Picard is the main story, a lot of the hype for this series was built on the fact that so many Next Generation characters were returning, such as Data, such as Will Riker and Deanna Troi and Hugh. And while Hugh played a much bigger role over multiple episodes, the other ones have mainly just been cameos up to this point, and that's sort of disappointing in my eyes. So I hope that they maybe work them in just a little bit more as they go on. But overall, I thought this episode was good. I can't wait for next week's episode. It looks like 7 of 9 is coming back to serve a bigger role than up to this point than her previous episode. I'm glad that they're bringing her back into the series later on in the series. And yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Some things that I thought seemed familiar. It's not a direct parallel here, but I thought it was interesting that there is a certain Avengers Endgame vibe here, in that the old friend goes to his friend who is settled down with a wife and a daughter in a cabin in the woods feel. Here with Picard coming to Riker and Troi on a cabin planet where he has got a daughter in the cabin in the woods, similar to Steve Rogers going to Tony Stark, who has married Pepper and now has a young daughter, and they're living in a cabin in the woods. So, it's a tenuous connection, but that was a serious vibe that I got when I saw those scenes. But other than that, yeah, that was my main point of comparison with this episode, but I may have missed something. What did you think of this episode of Picard? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Is there another point of comparison that you saw in this episode that I missed? I may have missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to tune back in to this channel every Thursday evening for I post my reactions to each episode on the day that they come out, as soon as I can see them and get my reactions filmed, edited, and processed. I try to do it the same day. And also I do movie reviews on my channel. My most recent one was for Sonic the Hedgehog. You can find that on my channel as well. If you like any video on my channel, be it this reaction video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.